We often hear the advice that you need to enjoy the moment. But we are so used to enjoying only the things and not the moments. We enjoy the things that are either very difficult to obtain or very expensive for us. However, many psychologists and mentors advise us to enjoy day-to-day moments. It can be the smile of a loved one, or you see an old couple walking in the park holding their hands, or just looking at the sun warming your face. Trivia, would you say? But it also worth your attention. Listen to the amazing story of a taxi driver from New York, which has radically changed his life perspective. I arrived at the address and beeped. After waiting a few minutes, I beeped again. This cab call was the last one for a shift, and I was already thinking about leaving. But instead of this, I parked the car and went to the door. Knocking for almost a minute, I heard the voice of an old lady, and like she was dragging something on the floor. After a long pause, the door opened. In front of me was a little woman in her 90s. She was wearing a colorful dress and a hat with a veil, like in the 1940s. There was a suitcase nearby. The house looked completely deserted. All the furniture was covered, there were no clocks on the walls, and the shelves were empty. In the corner there was a box with photos and glassware. "Could you please take my bag to the car?" the old woman asked. I took the suitcase and returned to help her. The woman took me by the arm and we walked slowly to the car. On the way, she thanked me for my kindness. "No problem," I said. "I'm just trying to treat my passengers the way I would like my mother to be treated." "You're such a good person," she said. When we got in the car, the woman gave the address and asked, "Can we drive through the city?" I quickly replied, "This is not the nearest way." It's nothing. I'm in no hurry," said the old woman. "I'm going to the nursing home. It must be my last journey." I looked in the mirror and saw the woman's eyes gleaming. "I have no relatives at all," she continued in a low voice. "The doctor said I didn't have much time left." I silently reached for the taximeter and turned it off. Which way do you want to go?" I asked her. The next 2 hours we were driving around the city. The woman showed me the buildings where she used to work as a lift woman. We toured the whole area where she lived with her husband after the wedding. Then she asked me to stop in front of the furniture store that used to be the ballroom. In her youth, she went there to dance. Sometimes she asked me to drive slower near the familiar for her buildings, and she stared in the dark without saying a word. A few seconds later, the horizon began to appear, and suddenly the woman said, "I'm already tired, please drive to the nursing home." In complete silence, we arrived at the address she gave me at the beginning. Workers of the nursing home ran to the car as soon as we approached. They behaved politely, watching carefully every move of the old woman. It was obvious that they were waiting for her here. I opened the trunk and carried a small suitcase to the door. The woman was already sitting in a wheelchair. "How much do I owe you?" she asked, reaching for her wallet. "Nothing at all," I replied. "You have to earn for a living," the old woman objected. "There are other passengers for that," I replied. I leaned over and hugged her. "You gave the old woman a little joy," she said. "Thank you." I shook her hand and went to the car. The door closed. After this, I was driving around the city for a couple of hours thinking. I couldn't talk the whole next day. The thoughts in my head were only about this woman. What if a woman caught an evil taxi driver? What if the taxi driver ended the shift and he didn't want to waste time? What if I refused to go, or didn't knock on the door? I believe that this was the most important deed in my life. We are used to thinking that our lives revolve only around important moments. But important moments often appear in the form of those that many will consider insignificant.